All right, welcome back, guys. So a little while back, we came out to Sun Valley, Idaho to shoot a video discussing how skis are constructed and what goes into ski construction. In that video, our goal was that anybody would be able to pick up a ski, know how it was going to perform, and know if it was right for them. One of the biggest requests that we got was to discuss ski tuning next. So this is a pretty complicated and scary subject, so I've come right back to Sun Valley to bring in my friend Harry to help explain it and make sure that I cover this at the highest possible level so that you have the highest level of understanding and can apply it to get the perfect ski tune.
My name is Harry Ottinger. I'm an owner here at Black Tie Sun Valley, and I saw those requests and I watched a ton of videos on YouTube on how to tune skis. And some of those were done by some true experts who really knew what they were doing. Some of them were horrifying. And all of the videos really showed you the what to do. I want to talk about the how to do it, the why to do it, to set the viewers up for success, to either know when to bring their skis in for a tune, how to maintain that tune, how to tune their stuff at home, take some of the ritual out of it and turn it into a real understanding.
I think that's really it. I think my big goal here is that you understand why you're doing what you're doing, not just going through the motions and repeating something that you saw in a tutorial. So in order to do that, the first half of this video, we're going to cover the technical knowledge. We're going to cover the definitions, the different dimensions, the different aspects. We're going to show you some diagrams of the different angles and how they interact with each other. Then during the second half of this video, we're going to go through the application of that knowledge. So we're going to go through a process, use those terms, and show you how they apply so that you can tune a ski, not based off of a repetitive process, but based off knowledge of how the ski tune works. So getting right into it, let's start with a big one that feels like it should be simple, but is not. What exactly is ski tuning?
Ski tuning is an incredibly broad subject. It's anything you're doing to improve your ski or do something to your ski to enhance your skiing experience. It can be as simple as cleaning it off or drying it when you're done skiing. Or it can be as complicated as a subject we're really not going to get into, which is what type of pattern you stone grind into the base of the ski. That's not something you can do at home, so we're going to concentrate on things like edges, a little bit of waxing, and things that will just enhance your experience when you're on the mountain.
So for this video, we're really going to focus on edge performance, how to set your edge angle, how to tune those edges, how to maintain those edges, and then we're going to briefly touch upon waxing. Does that sound good?
That sounds great to me.
So starting off with that, let's talk about edge angles because these are not nearly as intuitive as people would think. And honestly, in preparation for this video, I actually learned a lot. So what are the two angles that we need to know about and how do we actually measure those?
So the two angles we're going to be talking about is the base edge angle, which is referenced off a flat base.
Okay.
And the side edge angle, which is using the same reference plane. And what makes the point of your edge is where those two planes intersect.
So I kind of always thought for a long time that skis were just flat all the way across, that when I had my base, my edges were just perfectly flat out from that. And in preparation for this video, I learned that that is not the case, that most of our edges actually slope down about 1 degree off of our base edge, or plane. And that is what makes up our base edge bevel. So why is that?
Well, that's because steel is a lot higher friction on snow than PTEX base is. So if your edges were dragging on the snow all the time, it would feel terrible. It's not so much you'd feel slower. It would be very difficult to pivot the skis. You would feel them dragging across the snow at even the slightest amount of input, and it would be pulling your skis left and right. It would just feel absolutely terrible. So we want to bevel that steel off the snow so you can pivot and control your skis.
So one thing that we talked about in depth before this video is that that angle is usually about 1 degree. Now, any of these angles, if you want to know what they are on your ski out of the factory, you can go look up a graph. Evo has a good one. Each manufacturer releases spec sheets that cover them. But what we talked about is that this 1 degree angle it's way too small for us to see on a 3mm edge, but it's incredibly important. So it's one of the ones that if you're messing with a lot, you stand to really, really mess up your ski. And why is that?
That's because even if you're using a 1 degree file guide, if you keep removing material at 1 degree, you keep moving that point over. You're going to start digging into the base material, and it's going to take more and more and more effort and movement to get up onto that edge. It's going to feel slidey. And I've seen skis ruined because people have just removed base material to the point where I can't even flatten it out on my stone grinder without going through the base material of the ski. So you just want to be a little bit careful there. At the end of the video, I don't want you to be afraid of it. but I want you to understand what you're dimensioning, how, and when.
So this is one that once you kind of have it set and once it's well established, you're really not going to mess with too much. And so we're going to talk about it. The only time that you're really going to mess with it is if you're doing some fancy stuff like detuning, which we're going to cover later.
And I'm going to show you a really fun technique to play with your base edge angle, to feather it around, something that's very prevalent in the race world, but with modern automated tuning technology is actually trickling down into recreational skiing as well. And it's something that home tuners have been doing for a very long time.
Cool. All right, so now getting into our second angle, that's going to be our side angle. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm just going to be referring to this one as edge angle, and I'm going to be referring to the base angle as our base edge bevel, okay? Talk to me about why the measurements on the side angle can be so confusing.
Well, because you have tools that are described 3 different ways as 99, 98, 97, 1, 2, 3, 87, 88, 90, you know, they're all really saying the same thing, just based off of a different plane of measurement. They all are just 1, 2, 3. I'm going to refer to them as 1, 2, 3. Some of my tools are labeled differently from that, but I really don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of that because it's really not important.
I think the thing here that really confuses me is that, and that we're going to show here in a graphic, is that your reference plane for the edge angle is not the angle of your base edge. It is actually the angle of your base. So if this is your base and you have the base edge bevel dropping off at 1 degree, a 90-degree angle would not be from this 1 degree. It would be from your base angle. That would be 90. Okay, so when we talk about a 1 degree side angle, that's actually a true 90-degree edge. And we're going to show this all visually once again, but understanding that the measurement is not from the base edge bevel, but from the base plane is really important. And that's where a lot of people get confused, but we're going to try to keep this super simple. And then hopefully, as we talk about this later on in tuning, you guys know exactly what angle we're actually talking about.
I think from an effective standpoint, that's not something that you're going to make a mistake on when you're actually working on the ski. It's just going to be confusing as you're thinking about it. Once you get hands-on, it feels fairly intuitive.
Perfect. Okay, so those are actually the only 2 dimensions and aspects that we really need to cover. The next thing that we're going to cover in this kind of definitions part is our tools. Because as you can see here, we have a ton of stuff laid out. And the truth is that 99% of the time, you're not going to use all of this. You're going to have a couple tools that you're going to use repetitively. And all of this is just to show you everything that could possibly be used. So let's touch upon the big ones, which are going to be gummy stone, diamond stone, and our files.
Absolutely. So these are all my toys and I love having them. I have all of these because I'm tuning so many skis every day, and this helps me to be more efficient. When you're just doing your own skis, you need 1 of each, maybe 2 diamond stones if you want to get really technical about it. But basically, we have files. I have them in 3 different sizes, coarsenesses, if you will, and you're going to use the middle one most of the time. This is used to remove large amounts of material. Diamond stones. This cuts in either direction, really polishes and grinds the material away, but removes very little material at a time. It's a lot harder than the file. It's great for removing case hardening if your file is skipping. We'll get into what that means in a little bit. And then you can use finer grits to refine those tool marks if you need to. And then a gummy stone. This is used to polish a little bit more. I use this a lot to feel the edge, just to give me a lot of feedback. And it helps deburr, it helps remove fangs. It's just another fine polishing tool to refine the planes that make your edge.
I think one of the important things to keep in mind here is that this is not a linear process. It does not go directly from file to diamond stone to gummy stone. Instead, this is a process of kind of going back and forth. For example, if you are dealing with damage and stuff, you might start with a diamond stone to go through some of the harder material, then go back to a file to set your angles, to do some actual sculpting of the edge, and then go back to the diamond stone and gummy stone once again. And so it can be a back and forth process. It's not linear, and understanding what they do and when to apply them is far more important than thinking of them in a linear process that you're going to repeat each time.
One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is turning it into a ritual. I'm going to do 3 passes with this tool, then 6 passes with this tool, then 2 passes with this tool, and then I'm going to wax my skis. That is a great way to waste a lot of time, maybe get a good result sometimes, not get a good result other times, and make it a dull and frustrating process.
Okay, so getting to the last thing on this table, and what I hear is actually your favorite part of tuning, and everybody else loves to obsess over. Let's talk about wax.
I really don't want to talk about wax. And here's why. Because there's a lot of videos out there about how to wax your skis. They're all fine. If you're waxing your skis using something in the ballpark of proper technique, using a reasonable quality product in something approaching the right temperature range, you're doing so much better than most other people on the mountain. Just be happy with it. It drives me insane. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to use this horsehair brush and then this nylon brush, but if it's cold out, it's going to build up static electricity. Who cares?
But people have told me that if I'm not putting storage wax on my skis, I'm abusing my skis.
Okay, it's absolutely ridiculous. There is no such thing as an oxidized ski base. We used to talk about base burn. Base burn happens from the physical friction of the snow on the ski. It either makes it fuzzy or it pulls the pigment out so it gets white, and we used to call it burnt. Then somebody was like, I want to sound fancy. A fancy way of saying burned is oxidized. There is not a chemical reaction going on between the air and your inert PTEX base that's causing it to oxidize.
Okay.
You don't need to protect it.
Okay.
I mean, you do a little bit if you're racing, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Really don't worry about it, guys.
In 4 years of professional skiing, I waxed my skis all of once and I've been just fine. If waxing is the biggest thing for you to focus on, I'm gonna tell you to go focus on skiing in your form, all right? Waxing your skis is great. It's gonna give you an edge up in performance, but worrying too much about this wax versus this wax is not gonna make the biggest difference. Now, Harry and I had this talk beforehand, so I'm intentionally provoking him because I know he is extremely sensitive about this subject, but at the end of the day, waxing is a nice luxury. We're gonna cover how to do it. There are a ton of different ways to do it. They're all fine, but this is just something nice to add on top. It is not a necessity as much as it is a luxury.
Just do it. It will feel great and you'll have a great time. Don't turn it into a chore.
And with that, we're gonna get into how to actually apply this. All right, so far we covered your base edge bevel, your side angle, all of your different tools, your files, your diamond stones, your gummy stones, and Harry's extremely strong feelings on wax. So now it's time to actually apply this. And this is where I really have to pass the video over to Harry, because my version of tuning skis is whacking them against a rock so my edge doesn't stick out. Your version of tuning skis is art. So where do we start?
We're going to turn it into a little bit more science than art. And, you said earlier, the perfect ski tune. There is no such thing as the perfect ski tune. It's something I feel very strongly about as well. There is a time and a place for different dimensions, different ways of tuning the ski. And I'm going to show you something that's very general that's going to work in a lot of situations. If you want to get really specific into it, that's when you can start listening to some race videos or things like that. But I don't want anybody to think that if they do this, it's going to be perfect. If they do this, it's going to be consistent, something you can count on.
I think the biggest thing is to actually get into this process, we should have put a ski up here. So
let's cut to that.
Before we get into actually tuning the ski, I need to give a quick shout out and thank you to Hotel Ketchum. Last night, one of our crew, our sound engineer and backup camera operator, his rig broke down and is currently in the shop tonight. So we needed a place for him to stay, and Hotel Ketchum offered us an incredible deal on what is honestly a beautiful room. Now, prior to this, I haven't done any ad sponsorships or stuff for this channel, and that's just because I didn't know how I wanted to handle them. But this was something I was passionate about because they did a favor for us. They provided us with a beautiful room in a beautiful location right in downtown Ketchum. It's right above the black tie location.
And they have a heated pool and hot tub.
So thank you guys so much. If you guys are interested, if you're coming out to Sun Valley, don't forget to check them out. Their entire facility is beautiful. All of the rooms are absolutely gorgeous. After staying on the road for so long, it felt like staying in heaven. So go check them out. I'll put a link in the bio below. So now we actually have our ski to tune. For the sake of this video, let's say this is a ski that has possibly seen a little bit of wear. We don't know what the angles are actually set to. We don't know how long it's been stored, but we're going to take a fresh crack at tuning it, setting it up the way that we want it to ski so that it performs the way that we want it to. What would you do first?
So before we do anything else, we have to do a little prep work. Each sidewall ski has what's called a bumper as part of the sidewall that is right on the edge. We're planing this to an angle. The bumper needs to be pushed out of the way. Otherwise, our tools are just going to be skipping off of that plastic.
I mean, we'll have to show this real quick, but obviously somebody was misusing this because you can see a lot of plastic ground in there.
Yeah, it's just ground in there. It's clogging up my very nice diamond stone because somebody was trying to sharpen an edge and they were just dragging it across the plastic. They were not working the face of the plane flat. They were just wasting their time. So we got to do prep work.
Okay.
This is a sidewall planer. I use it all the time, every day. It's from Verdonk Racing. I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to show you a way you can use some of these other tools to do it. It's not quite as pretty, but it's also something that when you get your skis tuned at a shop, you can request they do. It is possible to work these edges with the large machines without pulling the bumper and saving some time. So it's not a terrible thing to ask for if you're going to be maintaining your edges at home. And this is a push tool. Most are pull. We're not working the edge, we're not working the base, so I don't want to hear everybody complaining about how I'm going from tail to tip.
So just throwing this up there, but step one is going to be pulling these edges. Now this is one that most people don't think about and you really don't see in any of the videos, but as he explained, it's extremely important so that you don't mess up your diamond stones, as you can see, and your files.
So a way you can do this at home without buying a specialized tool is if you have an extra file guide, usually something that's at a higher degree, and then you can take some masking tape, some duct tape, something to put it on there so it's an even higher degree angle than is indicated, because we want this moved out of the way. So
if you're increasing the edge angle by adding tape on there, do you run the risk of messing up your edge if it's running along your edge?
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna so half the steps we're gonna do are gonna mess up our edge, and the other half are going to bring it back to the proper dimension.
Okay.
I mean, that's just kind of sometimes part of working. Is it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes preparation is not the same as finishing. So you're not going to get a tuned edge if you have the bumper there. The fact that this is going to hit both the edge of the bumper is important, but if you don't want to buy a $200 tool to do it, this is something you're going to do.
I think that's why it's so important that people understand it, because if you're going to mess something up, you better know how to fix it.
So I'm pulling off a ton of edge material, and I'm pulling off, I would be pulling off some of this if there was any left. And this is essentially taking part of this edge and making it a significantly greater than 3 degree. But as long as I'm getting rid of that plastic, I can take that plane and get it back to what it's supposed to be. And this is just a Panzer file that I broke, an old file guide, and a little extra angle on it. It's not my favorite way of doing things, but it's a lot less expensive than buying a specialized tool.
So guys, we're going to be using a ton of different tools here. There's some really specialized stuff like this fancy edge pulling tool. Now, to make it simple and to help you guys keep track of it, in the description, I'm going to put a list of all of the tools that we talk about. And I'm also going to put links to where you can find them, whether you just want to go look at them or whether you are going to be building out your own home tuning kit.
Okay, next step. We've done that. We've pulled that out of the way. First thing I'm going to do, I don't know what damage has been done to this. I'm going to take that file. I'm going to clamp it to my final degree that I want, which is 2 degrees. I'm going to use a little bit of lubricant on here so that whatever I pull off stays in emulsion, doesn't gum up my tool. This is machine emulsion that we use. You can use Windex, you can use spit, you can use whatever the heck you want. Lots of people use isopropyl alcohol. And I'm just going to work the whole edge and feel what I'm doing, see if there's any hardening, any giant burrs that I need to take care of. And now I have a fresh surface that I can cut with my file.
So the reason he's doing this first with the diamond stone is that any hardening that comes from oxidization, rock impacts, stuff like that, the files can't actually cut through. They'll just skip over. So by going over it with a diamond stone first, he's essentially preparing that edge, making it more malleable so that when we go in with the file, we can set that edge angle without anything interfering. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier with it being a back and forth process. We're starting with the diamond stone, we're gonna go to the file to set that edge angle, and then again, we're gonna go back in with the diamond stone and gummy stone to actually refine the edge. So it's a back and forth process, and understanding what these tools do is extremely important to being able to apply them.
Now I'm gonna use a file to turn this edge into a flat plane that comes to a point. I have taken that same file guide, I've put the file in the direction where it cuts. On this one, what I like to do is I want to be pulling it towards me so it maintains its angle. I'm going to be using a pulling motion on this. With this step, it does not matter if it's tip to tail or tail to tip. We're going to be removing these tool marks later. And I'm going to put my thumb over essentially where the contact point is so that I can maintain pressure there and my file isn't moving around on the file guide. And I'm going to pull and I'm going to look at my edge. And when I see that I'm getting full contact along the entire face of that and I'm making a straight plane to the edge, I'm done. I really don't have to go farther. And I want to remove as little material as possible. I don't want to be standing in a pile of shavings because every time I do this and I remove large amounts of material, I am taking a little bit of life out of the ski. So it's good to be careful.
So setting your edge angle is a kind of one-time thing, all right? You don't know what edge angle that this ski comes with. You can look it up in spec sheets, and Evo has a great page that details it for a lot of different skis. However, you are likely going to want to choose one edge angle that you apply to all of your skis so that you only have to use essentially one edge piece and you can use that repetitively. So you set that edge angle once and then you stick to it, all right? For Harry's use case, he's chosen a 2-degree edge angle just because that's a nice middle ground. It works well. The larger the degree, the sharper it's going to be, or you said more.
The larger the degree, the finer your edge is, but the more delicate it is and the more quickly it's going to wear. So we have a dichotomy between the fineness or overall sharpness of the edge and how long it stays sharp. 2 degrees seems to work really well if you're touching your skis up every few days. We use it at the rental shop because it lasts through the majority of our rental periods, 5, 6, 7 days, and it still feels really good at the end and is easy for us to put back on.
So if you're going to be a racer and you're going to be redoing this and you're going to be working on them regularly, 3 degrees is going to be great. It's going to be essentially sharper, but it's not going to last as long. If you just want something that's going to hold up longer, go towards 1 degree. If you want a nice middle ground, Harry's chosen 2 degrees, and that's what every single ski in this shop has done so that they only need one set of tools to apply it every single time. And once again, when you set that edge angle with the file, this is more or less a one-time thing that you're not going to want to repeat because you don't want to be taking away too much material. In the future, when you go to tune, you'll probably just be using your diamond stone so that you are essentially polishing, cleaning up that and refining it so that it feels nice and sharp and fresh again.
So we can refine it with that, but also if you have any rock strikes or damage, we're not going to try and just file it all away because you're going to end up with a divot in your edge. A lot of your edge is not always contacting the snow at the same time. So like a 1.5 centimeter imperfection is not going to significantly change your edge hold. So what you're going to do is you're going to remove the burrs, you're going to flatten it out, but you're not going to remove so much material that it simply disappears.
Okay, point. We have set our edge angle. What are you going to do to refine it?
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up all the schmutz that I left on there from using the file. I don't want to be grinding that into the ski. Let's put a little cleaner on a towel and I wipe it off. The next thing I'm going to do is I've left tool marks consistent with whatever file that I was using. I want it to be smoother so that it lasts longer, but also those tool marks are going to where our edge is and making it less consistent. As I go finer and finer and finer, I am refining that point to make it sharper and smoother, and it'll last longer because it won't catch as much. So I'm going to go to a relatively coarse diamond stone, the same one that I used to get rid of any hardening and feel my edge. I'm going to run it along in both directions because it cuts in both directions until I feel like the tool marks that I've left are consistent with the grit of tool that I'm using. And then maybe I'm going to go one farther. And you don't always have to go in steps 100, 200, 300 and take all day in this. I'm going to skip from 120 to 400 because I think it'll turn out just fine. And then I can feel it. I can feel myself refining what this edge is. Feels smooth, feels great. You can hear it gliding consistently. And hey, I can practically see my reflection in it. It looks great.
Okay, so one thing I noticed is after doing all of that, our side edge feels incredible, but we have what feels like a bladed lip on the edge.
We call that a fang.
Okay.
And that happens because we've been taking this very fine edge, we've been pushing down, we've been applying pressure, and we've rolled a little bit of material so that it's proud of the plane of our base edge. That feels awful. That will feel hooky grabby on the snow, and we've got to get rid of it. So we're going to flip it over. And that material is very weak. So we're just going to take our gummy stone. We're not going to hammer on it like somebody did with this one and undo all the work we did. We're going to take this, we're going to put this essentially on the plane that is this base edge, and we're just going to work it off. We can pull out a little bit if we want, because that's going to really get rid of it. But there's not any strength to that fang. So this will remove it really easily, just like that. And we haven't undone the work we just did to make it sharp.
Okay, so we just put a ton of work into our side edge angle, but we haven't touched that 1 degree base edge bevel. And why is that?
Well, we've assumed that whatever factory or whatever shop has tuned this last has essentially set that properly. And if we continue to use our 1 degree bevel tool on the base edge and we continue to remove material, we're actually just making that base more and more proud of the edge, making it harder to get up on edge, and ending up with a much higher than 1 degree effective edge angle, and we're ruining the ski. I've seen people who have tuned their base edges so much, they've practically turned their skis into a trapezoid, and I can't even get them flat on my stone grinder again without getting through the base of the ski.
Okay.
And that's not good.
So essentially, it's too fine of a measurement for us to really work safely. And so we kind of have to put faith into the manufacturers and anybody who's worked on it previously to have essentially done that correctly. But earlier, you did reference the idea of detuning, or essentially messing with that angle on the tips and tails to prevent unnecessary grabbing.
So here's where we can go from taking it on faith to feeling something when we ski and adjusting it to our taste. I will tell you, if somebody doesn't put a proper base edge angle on there, you will feel it immediately. It will feel railed, and you will go back to the shop and say, fix this, you did a bad job. Even good shops, it can happen. Machines go out of calibration, somebody forgets a step. Don't get mad at them, just give them some feedback. And it's a railed ski without the bevel will feel terrible. But if you like the way it feels and you just want to refine it a little bit, we're going to show you some steps that will allow you to personalize how it feels.
Okay, so that was a lot, but here's what we've covered so far. So we started by pulling our sidewall, removing that plastic from right above the edge so that we have space to work on our side edge angle. Afterwards, we went in with our diamond stone and with our gummy stone to remove any hardening so that the edge was nice and malleable, so we could go in with our file and set our edge angle. All right, we set our edge angle to a 2 degree angle because that is the angle that we want to set all of our skis to. Now that angle changes for everybody, but that's what we chose. All right, afterwards we had a little bit of a fang, so we went in with the gummy stone and removed that fang. Okay, at this point, since we're not going to be setting our base edge bevel, our ski is nice and sharp. If you went and skied the ski right now, you would have a very, very grabby ski that's going to cut into the snow well. However, it might actually be cutting into the snow too well. And so here's where we're going to start to really mess with our base edge bevel, getting a little creative and personal to make the ski perform the exact way that we want to by removing some of the tune from the edge. This might be called a variable tune or a feathered tune or a detune on the tip and tail. And why would we do this?
Well, what we are doing is a form of detuning.
Okay.
And the form that I'm going to show you guys is a blended base edge bevel detune,
Okay.
or a feathered base edge bevel. It's something I think isn't very prevalent, isn't shown a lot. It's been very common amongst tuners for a long time. But I actually think it's very easy to do once you understand it. And it's something that allows you to personalize the feel of your skis to your tastes.
So the biggest reason that you're going to do this is that if your tip and tail past the contact patch are extremely fine-tuned, then at speed with variability, bounce, chop, those are going to have the most leverage and control in the ski. Whereas we want the ski to be controlled by the contact patch where we have control over the ski, all right? We don't want vibrations at the tips and tail grabbing the ski and shifting it around. So we're going to remove a little bit of the tune. And if you think about that 1 degree base edge bevel all the way across the tune, we're going to increase the base edge bevel and then gradually blend it into that 1 degree angle so that the tips and tails have a gradual spectrum of control that starts with less and then gains more in the places where we actually want to control the ski.
And it's really easy to do. So we have a portion of the ski up here, way, up in the shovel, past the contact point, past the widest part of the side, past any of the rocker on the ski. We haven't even been working on it. It's not sharp. It wasn't sharp from the factory. But we're going to grab our file, and there we can be really aggressive, just pulling it along there, making it dull. It's already dull. On this ski, there is a lot of running length. Our contact point is way up at the tip, and that's going to be super aggressive, super grabby, super carby, feels nice. But if I'm at a very, very extreme angle here, as I get there, I'm gonna make it less so, but more than flat, more than the 1 degree that I can't feel. And what I'm gonna do is, as I come back, I'm gonna make my file flatter and flatter and flatter. And I'm not saying this is a 3 degree, a 4 degree, a 5 degree. I don't really know. That is really not something you're gonna calibrate your hands to be doing. But what I'm gonna do is make sure in the light, I am creating new material from my edge all the way to the base at a bevel that is greater than 1 degree. I'm gonna bring that back to wherever the heck I want. On this particular ski, I'm gonna do about that much. And that's so that it becomes predictable and easy to use. It makes it so that it's easy to pivot the ski. And we've left it sharp so it can still dig into the ice, but it's not gonna be grabby, as opposed to taking our gummy stone and just wailing on it at a 45-degree angle and undoing a lot of the work that we've already done.
So the big thing here is to do it little by little. You can always go do more of this, but you can't easily undo it. So start on the furthest edges, go just to where the contact patch starts. If you don't know where your contact patch starts, flip your ski over, find a flat surface, press it all the way down and see where the ski starts to cut up and where it's no longer being pressed into that flat surface. All right, take it easy on this one, do it little by little. Now, this is a really, really cool step that is not touched upon in almost any video, but it will significantly increase the enjoyability of the ski, while also actually giving you more control by putting the control where your feet are in control and not where the snow is going to be leveraging the ski against you.
And the other important thing to think about is I'm using the file to do this, to set this initially. Once you've set it, it's still there. I can then just smooth it out with the gummy stone the next time I tune. Maybe if there's a nick up there, I can use the diamond stone. But you don't have to spend this much time on it each time you touch up your skis. Once you like it and it's set, it's pretty much set until you stone grind it again.
All right, so at this point, we have fully tuned our edges and we've also then detuned our edges. So we have a ski that is going to perform the way that we want it to when we're carving on ice, snow, whatever we're going through. This ski is going to perform exactly the way I want it to, and honestly, far better than any ski I actually own. So the last thing that we're going to do is going to be your favorite part of the video. We're going to wax the ski.
No, we're not. I will not hot wax a ski on video because there is a million videos of somebody hot waxing a ski, but I am going to show you 2 ways, maybe not quite as good as hot waxing. One of these companies will tell you that it is, but it's so much better than doing nothing. You don't need an iron. It doesn't make a mess, and it just takes a few moments.
So guys, the reason we're not going to do a hot wax is because it's not rocket science. You drip wax on, you scrape wax off. There's a million tutorials out there. All right. And once again, as we covered earlier, this is kind of a luxury item. At the end of the day, there is nothing necessary about this. It dramatically increases your improvement of the ski or enjoyment of the ski, but it's not.
It makes it smoother and more consistent. You should absolutely do something. And by doing something, you're doing well.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do a process that you might not have seen before. That is very much just as good and will give you that enjoyment without hot waxing.
So here's a product called Fast Stick. It's something that doesn't require an iron. I'm going to not open that pack, use my own, and all I'm going to do is crayon it on.
Now guys, one of the biggest benefits
That's all you need
of not doing the hot wax is guess what? You don't have to worry about a giant mess. And when I was racing, this is how we would fine tune our ski right before going. So at the highest performance levels, this is still a very, very practical technique.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, when you're racing, you're trying to get that initial acceleration out of the gate. All that work that you put into it is gone by the time you're halfway down the course. Now there's still some wax, there's still some stuff happening, blah, blah, blah. But recreationally, all that brushing, all those different types of brushes, all that stuff doesn't matter by the time you're done with your first run. So here we go. I rubbed it on. I have this tool. I love it. Voila. Here's the thing. You probably don't have one of these roto brushes. It's a good investment. It takes longer, but grab some Scotch-Brite. Somebody's going to tell me this is the wrong Scotch-Brite. It all works fine. And I'm going to generate some heat and I'm going to rub it in. I am going to try to go only in the direction of travel on the ski. that worked.
Now guys, I can't really show this on camera, but there's a visual difference between when he crayons it on and when he buffs it. All right, you can see white streaks before and after. And what he said about your wax not lasting is incredibly relevant. When I was racing, the night before every single race, we would do a full hot wax, but it was pretty well known that by the time that we actually got to the race course, 99% of that was gone. And so we would do this exact process with fast stick at the top of the race course in order to get our actual performance. And we would notice actual differences in our times doing this process, but the hot wax was, who knows how much of it was left. If there's too much, it's gonna run slower. If there's too little, it's gonna run slower. If it's right in the middle at the perfect time, it's gonna run the best. So this is actually what we did when I was competing, and it's, as you can see, way simpler and way cleaner. So once again, waxing, a luxury, simple process that works, really, really nice.
Here's another alternative. They call this liquid hot box because this is essentially a hot wax in a carrier that will absorb into the ski. You take some, this happens to be warm, squirt it on there, spread it out. You probably use like a, I don't know, a paper towel, I think is what they say to use. You let it sit there. Then after it soaks in, you'll actually, if we had a time lapse, watch it get drier, soak into the ski. The carrier evaporates, it leaves the wax, you wipe it off. It smells really nice.
It does smell really nice. Well, with that, guys, our ski is fully tuned. And so I hope that you guys learned something today. In preparation for this video, I honestly learned a ton about how the different angles interact. For years, people have been telling me to race with a 3-degree angle and so on and so forth. But to be honest, right up until the moment that I was doing my research in preparation for this video and spending a ton of time with Harry in the shop, I didn't know what most of it meant. So if you guys gained anything from this video, I hope it is a understanding of what the angles mean and how to actually work on those angles to get a ski to perform the way that you want.
I certainly hope if after this video you're still interested and you have some questions on how to do better or refine your technique or something we can elaborate on, I would love to work with you in the future and go into more detail about any steps that people are interested in.
Okay, guys, so with that, I really hope you guys learned something. This was a very difficult video to make. Harry did tons of research, watched every video on the internet to figure out what we wanted to cover. And we really wanted to create something that covered aspects that people don't talk about, gave you an understanding at a professional level, and also gave you the skills that you needed to be able to make microscopic adjustments to your skis and get the ski to perform in a way that you want, while also being able to fix issues with your ski down the line. If you guys learned anything at all today, don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.